And when I look down, folks, I'm taking notes. Hi, Tammy.
Hi, Dr. Rob. And you are entitled to take notes. It does help us keep track of things. So, okay, the first question, I just put it in the answer so you can see it. Around 10 years old, my 45-year-old SA husband started sexualizing his mother and his sister, who was 5 years older than him. His mother would swim topless and he watched his sister shower. His mother has a sibling and parent incest porn addiction that we stumbled upon a few years ago. His sister used her sexuality to trap and control men since she started dating, even as far as group encounters with strangers. She's never had an intimate, healthy relationship. We do not know his father's sexual behavior, and he has since passed, but he was a high-functioning alcoholic. My husband does not have any memory of sexual abuse. Is this abnormal, even in a sex addiction world, for the entire family to be this sexually maladaptive or hereditary issue?
Well,
that's a look. You just have to stop. That's a look right now. So
I don't know what kind of look it is, but I'm just getting chilly here, getting cool at night. So I guess what the first thought I have is this is a question all about abuse. Like there's abuse all over this question. You don't have to have had physical contact to have had abuse. We have a name for that. We call it covert incest. So when mom is swimming around naked or telling you about her sexual life, or, dad is a mess and mom's turning to you, or, sister has, there's just, this story is filtered and veined with abuse and sexual abuse. And clearly there is some history of sexual abuse, which probably goes back generations from what I'm seeing, but it's getting, we talk about, Tammy and I, how important it is to come to treatment because this is generational. And absolutely, without question, what happens when you're growing up and doesn't get talked about, ends up in the next generation. And I got to tell you, almost every man I work with has a sad story about his kid, not harming them physically or anything like that, but just realizing because of what they grew up with, they were absent, or they were sexualizing the situation they were in, or whatever. So I don't think the question, is it abnormal for the entire family to be this maladaptive? Certainly sexual abuse hits everyone in the family, and it depends on to what degree this is going on. But I got to tell you, even if there wasn't hands-on contact, it isn't just your husband who saw mom swim around naked or saw the alcoholic dad, or, no wonder why your sister ended up making the decision she made. So what I see here is one of those, on some level, it doesn't matter because the shadow of what happened is so stark that you can almost look back and say, oh yeah, well, that's why it has that outline. No, I don't think it's abnormal. I just think it's tragic. And I hope that everyone, or at least those who are aware, are trying to work on this and make sure. One of the greatest and most important things to me in my work is to tell the men that I work with, please don't pass this on. And I think that's the most important piece to me, and behaviors and activities that can go on with a 45-year-old dad and how he's perceived and how the two of you get along, and all that stuff is going to play out on some level emotionally with kids. And so I would not want to pass this on. Anyways,
can you
Tammy?
speak? Yeah, no, I want you to, before you turn it over, I want you to speak to the hereditary issue, because what I hear you talking about is you can stop this here. So it's not like a biological hereditary. It's all of those factors that are woven into generationally that is, at play here probably, but I don't want to assume that.
I can't wait till you hear Dr. Higgins'
I know,
podcast.
I want to hear it. I looked today and it's not on yet.
Was fortunate enough to do a podcast with really one of the leaders in the biopsychological piece of addiction, where she really looks at brain markers and DNA and all of that kind of stuff. And I won't go into great detail because it'll take too long, but if you listen to Sex, Love, and Addiction, I think that's coming out at least early next week, if not before.
Yeah, I hope this week. I'm watching for it, so I'll post. Yeah.
And the reason I bring this up is because part of the thing we talked about on the podcast was a long discussion about hereditary factors related to addiction and other emotional disorders, as in addition to nature. And basically, without getting too complex, let me just say this, and I mean complex for me, I get confused. But the reality is that almost everyone that becomes an addict has some genetic markers that indicate the potential for that. So, and if you consider, I consider addiction to be a brain emotional illness problem, mental illness, but the same as depression or whatever. So we all carry, if you're depressed, for example, you carry gene markers for depression. However, and I don't mean to be complex, there's something called the epigenetics, which means what physical, nurture, biological experiences have gone on in childhood that may have caused this to happen or not. In other words, you can turn the gene on or off. So I might have the gene for depression, but if I have a really stable, really nurturing early environment where I'm not anxious or fearful, and it may be that I never get depressed because that gene doesn't get literally expressed. It just doesn't open up and begin to set down a trail of chemical changes that lead me to depression. But in my case, I grew up, with a very crazy, crazy family where there was some genetic markers for mental illness. And, here I am, I'm bipolar and I'm an addict. So, it's both. There are genetic markers for mental illness of every kind, addiction, depression, anxiety, all that stuff. But whether that expresses itself in the next generation or at any point has to do with the nurture part, the stability, the stressors, what a child has been through, or even an adult. I've seen people who went through tremendous stress at 30 and for the first time they became depressed. And that's because the kinds of neurochemistry and what they were going through at that time in their life was so stressful that gene got turned on. And I don't mean turned on by like sexually, I mean it begins to produce change. So Tammy, you're right, it's both is the right answer.
And I wanted to touch on because this was specifically asking about sexually maladaptive. And I'm like, it could be, but eating disorders. You mentioned alcoholism before.
Right. It's all the
father. So however, whatever maladaptive coping mechanism happens, or combination, it really is trying to figure out how I can manage in a very unsafe world. So sexually is how apparently it has played out with multiple members, but honestly, it could be that and other things too.
Right, the vulnerability is not necessarily to that specific thing. So it's a vulnerability, for example, to addiction. So, but what form that takes may have to do with more than a nurture piece. Like I experienced various forms of incest. So it makes sense to me that would have expressed itself in that way. Someone else or another one of your kids might have ended up with alcoholism because they had a different, by the way, I just put in the chat, Tammy, if anyone's interested in epigenetics, which I think is fascinating, I put up the CDC explanation, and it's fairly reasonable, but what it talks about is the intersection of biological traits and nurture and how they fit together. It's a really good article. You might like it, Tim.
I will absolutely pull that. Okay, so the next question is, can y'all, so somebody's from the South, can y'all talk about intermittent reward and how that can cause or enhance relationship addiction in the betrayed partner? Partner. Interesting.
Yeah, help me.
Okay.
I think I understand what this person's saying. I think what they're saying, and I could be wrong, is how does it drive me forward to continue to want to stay in the relationship? How does it drive me forward to be so focused on my partner? What is it about how we interact and how I'm rewarded by the relationship that keeps me addicted to this relationship? That's what I think it means. Does that make sense? Or do you have another take?
But I struggle with being addicted to the relationship.
Right.
I think your message of codependence is I love somebody who's broken, but that doesn't mean I'm addicted or pathologized by being in that. I still see the good in the relationship. So what am I missing?
Two parts to this, and maybe you're tying it together in some ways. So intermittent. When we study psychology, one of the basic things we learn is what motivates behavior. What makes someone do something and never do it again, do it every time, or never do it. And some of the most basic pieces are kind of go like this. If you were playing what do you call it? If you were playing a machine in Vegas and you wanted to
slot machine, you don't even have to do that anymore. It's just push a button. But so I don't either.
if you were playing one of those things in Vegas and it paid off every single time, you'd get bored. It's not that interesting. I know what the outcome's going to be. If you played the slot machine and you never got paid, you'd probably give up, because what's the point of throwing all this money in this thing? But what they know, and they actually have algorithms set up for how many times and whatever, if you play and you win occasionally, you're much more likely to chase that and have that idea of, oh, maybe next time, maybe next time, maybe next time. Very addictive in that way. And so you play and play with the hope that it will happen again, the good thing, because it's already happened. So it's the same in relationships. You know, we love someone, we have some really good times, things are great. And then, you know, things get really bad, or they're bad for a long time. But when there's a good moment, when there is a happy experience, when there's a holiday, or with a lot of betrayed partners, I love you and I hate you, you know. So I look over and I have those loving feelings, and we have a little glance because we've had this history. And all of a sudden I feel like, oh, okay, that's what we've had. That's what I've been looking for. And then it goes away. So I don't think that's addiction. I don't think anyone can be addicted to a person, but I think that you can gain this momentum of hope that really is relying on those good moments rather than what you're seeing in front of you. As Tammy says, you know, I don't believe that people are addicted to people. I think people love people, and they get really committed to those people, and they will, you know, as I've said many times before, under pro-dependence, I would never leave a partner, and I would give up my entire self to them if they had cancer. And so why would I leave them or distance myself or go away because they have an addiction, as painful as it might be, as long as, so in either case, I don't think that you're addicted to the person because they have cancer because you're obsessed about it. I don't think you're addicted to the person who's an addict because you're obsessed about that. I think we're obsessed with, if you will, the idea that it's going to get better, and if I just do this or just do that, or I remember last month when it was great. So we live on hope, I guess, and the moments that are good. The good news about this is I often say that to the addicts, that the partners who stay with us, if we're not overly abusive and we're working on it, you guys kind of carry the image of who we might be, the hope of who we could become, because you've experienced that a few times. Or, you know, I think you stay for the hope that the love you had will continue. So when you call yourself a relationship addict, I say that you are deeply love someone, and that you're really seeing the best in the times you've had, and you're kind of chasing the idea that it's going to get better because you've had good times. And, you know, we'll chase that forever, especially if we feel like there's something we can do. Like, if only I did this, it would change, or that, and that even pulls us in further. That's the explanation. Tammy, unless you have more, I think we should keep zipping through questions, so we'll never get
No,
them done.
that was really helpful, and thanks for clarifying. Okay, the next one is,
Sure.
I have some boundaries set, but it may not be enough. Can you mention a few, please, that are most common? This is, I'm sure, from a partner. So
Right. So let me first say, as Tammy and I often say, the boundaries are for you. They're not for your partner. So if you hope, just may not be quite what the intervention shows, but if you are trying to change your behavior in the hope, set a boundary, like you can't come home, for example, in the hope that they will change their behavior, that's not a good reason to have a boundary, because they may change it, they may not. However, if you don't feel safe with that person in the house, then that is a boundary to set. In other words, it is about you're keeping yourself safe. So boundaries to me are, what do you feel uncomfortable with? You know, what do you feel, you know, when you're lied to? Is that a boundary? If you lie to me, you know, whatever it is. If you come into my bedroom and I don't want you in the room, I don't want you here without knocking. I just thought it sounds simple. I don't want you to come home late. It's not okay with me. And if you do, I want you to call me. And I don't want to go to your parents' house for the holidays, since everyone in the family knows what you've been doing. Those are boundaries. So, Tammy, as far as the most common, and I'm going to push us to zip through, but can you throw a few out there, because you talk to so many spouses about this?
Well, you've talked specifically about domestic violence on either side is never okay. That's like just never okay. I often use 4 areas: physical. What do I need from my physical person for safety? Emotional, financial, and spiritual. I look at those 4 areas and I think about, how do I need to take care of myself and value myself? And I, then I can lay out, these are the things that I need to feel safe. And then I can ask my partner, this is what I'm doing for me, and I want you to honor those boundaries. And if that person is not able to, then it may cause you to step away, or him have to sleep in the other room, or whatever it is. So the consequences are not punitive because you did this or you are bad or whatever. It's like,
Right.
I value me. I'm doing this for my safety across those 4 areas, and I'm setting those things in place. So we've done, so they're on our Debbie McRae has, there's a bunch of them, but Debbie McRae did some really good webinars on that were previously recorded on our website. Yep. That talked specifically about that. But the challenge is that boundaries are about you. So what do you need? So it isn't just like, these are the 3 things that you need to put on your list. I mean, what do you need? So, okay.
Well, and I just really quick, a great example. My spouse looks at porn all the time, closed in their office upstairs in the house. My boundary might be, I want the door open. When I walk by that office, I don't want to think what you're doing there. I want to make sure when you're working, it'll just make me feel more safe. Perfect example of a boundary. The question is, though, what if they break them? I think that's something you always have to think about, not to threaten, like, if you do this, then at all, but inside of you, what do I do if they don't respect this? Let's keep racing. I want to get through all of them tonight.
Okay. All right. The next one. The last discovery was almost 2 years ago, and my PA has been doing good in recovery since then. The last time I saw the betrayed partner, CSAT, was in August, and she recommended I do the workbook called Intimate Treason, but I'm having a very difficult time even opening the book. What is the purpose of constantly writing the betrayal stuff down? I feel angry just thinking about it.
Well, I think you answered your own question there with the last sentence. I've been doing this for a while. I've certainly been betrayed in my life. If I was thinking about setting down and writing about that, I would feel bad. I would feel like I want to learn something from it, but I wouldn't be angry. And so the fact that your anger comes up and that you're resistant to it tells me that it's painful. I don't know if you know this, but anger is a defense. Defense is something you put up to hide or pretend to yourself or others. So people get angry to push someone away because always what's under anger is sadness. And we don't want to be vulnerable when we're sad. It's much easier to get angry. This is a psychological fact. Easier to get angry at you or safer than I feel so sad and I'm angry and I'm hurt. And so to me, if the anger's coming up when you're even thinking about it, then my guess is that there's sadness and hurt and other things lying under there that you may be kind of avoiding. So what is it we say in recovery, Tammy? Put your body in the chair and the rest will follow. There's a couple of things that I think you could say about that. Feelings aren't facts. Just because you feel bad about it doesn't mean it's a bad idea. So yeah, I mean, by the way, our CSATs are well trained, the ones that are good. So we don't make idle recommendations. If your CSAT said, I think you should do this, not a bad idea, but I would do it when you're involved with SLAA or going to one of our support groups or still seeing that therapist.
This is the betrayed partner, though.
Right.
Yeah.
Support groups, therapists. I wouldn't do this alone. Write this stuff down without support. Right. That's all I'm saying.
Right. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. But not SLAA, because that would be for the addict. But
oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. That was the only clarification. Right. Yeah. No, but and I'm going like, you know what? If you're angry thinking about it, that anger is inside you. And, like that is absolutely, Dr. Bessel van der Kolk wrote, The Body Keeps Score. And I just keep thinking about that toxic anger that is, if I'm going to use the word festering inside of you and getting it out on a piece of paper. We did a webinar about journaling, and there is research about how healthy and helpful and healing journaling is. So that would be why to write it, because then it's on your paper and not in your body. Okay.
I also, one more thing, because we're saying, anger is a stage of grief. And there are other stages that take place. Anger is one of the stages because the next one is sadness, depression. So again, I think absolutely there's grief going on here, and who wants to sit around and grieve? But you'll clean your soul, as Tammy said, if you do that, and your life will go better.
Yeah, grief is a
What have we got?
process and it's not linear. You don't go, I'm done with anger and now I'm this. It's like it's
Right.
back and forth, but it gets less. It's like you're processing through that. So, okay, my sex, love, and porn addict husband and I agreed after discovery 7 months ago that he would put masturbation in his inner circle. Today, we looked at his circles and it says compulsive masturbation. I asked him if he considered different masturbation and compulsive masturbation, and he said yes. So I asked him to put masturbation in his inner circle, like we had originally said. He said, well, he doesn't think masturbation is maladaptive coping mechanism. So now I see his loophole. Am I wrong to ask him to put it in his inner circle?
Well, everything, I'm totally with you to the last sentence, because I think that he's full of crap. And I think that, to me, this is exactly like saying, okay, I'm not going to drink whiskey, but I'm just going to have a glass of wine or half a bottle, but I'll do when people are around. I won't drink. In other words, he's setting up some kind of structure to give him permission to keep doing what he's doing. And he has a really good excuse. So to me, this is what does his 12-step sponsor say? What does the group that he's in say? What does he say with his therapist? I mean, he needs to be confronted. And thus, to the last part of your question, you're not wrong to want it in his inner circle, but it's not your job to ask him. You can say, I don't want to talk to you. Boundaries. I don't want to be around you. I don't want you coming home. I don't want you in my bed, unless he is willing to look at it and talk to someone about it and come back to you and say, based on your boundary and your request, this is what I did. Or you can just say, as long as you're still doing whatever the F you want, you're not working on it. And I don't want to talk about you're working on it because I don't believe you. And you can tell him, Dr. Rob said that the way masturbation goes with our clients in this way is simple. We take it out in the beginning for sure. And most often it's tied to porn. So within maybe 3 to 6 months, somewhere in there, it may be that person can return to masturbation, but never with the porn. So some of us, we're not really that aroused unless those images are right in front of us. And so if they're not recent, and it's been 6 months, I was looking at porn or whatever, some of us can masturbate. Some of us keep those images in our head because we're very visual. And so we can't, because we're constantly picturing that last experience, that last person. Now you would say, how do I look inside some of my partner's head and know this? It's not your job. What I did was I went to my sponsor, who I had a very important relationship, and I said, I'm thinking about masturbation. What do you think? And he said, well, it's been this long. Why don't you call me before, do what you need to do, and do it after, and then reach me in the next few days, and let's see how it goes. Excuse me, does it contribute to the problem? Sorry, that was a peanut, little piece. So I don't think it's your job to change the behavior. I think it's your job to take care of you and say, I don't feel comfortable with this. If you asked me to put something in my inner circle, I would resent you. And I don't think that I would respect the fact that I put it in there. I think I need to hear it from the other people that I'm involved with. But if he doesn't put it in there and you don't feel comfortable, and I wouldn't, then I think you need to set some boundaries. Like, as long as that's that way, I'm not doing this or I'm not doing that because I don't feel safe.
Yeah.
Tammy,
the only thing I wanted to chime in with was how is he going to decide what is compulsive and what is not? Like, that is such a,
right.
To me, that was a laughable moment in a not funny, situation, right. Because it's like you said with the whiskey and the beer and what, I mean, it's like, well, today I'm going to masturbate, but it's not going to be compulsive because I decided it's not compulsive is really the only thing. Yeah, I decided, yes. So,
right.
Okay.
And what I'm talking about is I've been working with someone for months and months and months, and I'm telling my spouse and I'm telling my sponsor, and everyone's, it's a completely open, discussed issue. And by the way, if my partner said, I don't feel comfortable with that. And let me say one more thing about masturbation. If I wanted to masturbate, and it wasn't on my program, the only way that I could see it being healthy is if I sat there in my partner's arms. And, you don't have to sex with me to hold me and I can masturbate. That's fine, but disconnected on my own, not such a great idea, especially in the beginning. It's really early, 7 months. Okay.
And what I don't hear, he's going to 12-step and he's doing all of these great things, seeing his, therapist, doing our online work groups, etc. So, okay.
Yeah, he should go to the porn work group. He doesn't get it.
Yes.
By the way, Tim, I have to say something about the work groups, because I worked with another couple today and it really frustrated me. One of the courses that we teach is out of the doghouse. And Out of the Doghouse is a book and a course about partner empathy. It's about how do I, as a man, it's about men, find a way to help my spouse come to peace with what I've done. And what do I need to do as an addict, actions to help my spouse feel safe? What kinds of things do I say when they get angry? Do I defend myself? Or, all of it's the instruction guide for a man to work on healing cheating with a woman. The problem is, and this is where it works into the workshops, is that I hear this all the time, and I heard it today. Well, I signed up and I took your doghouse lecture. I know, but you're an active sex addict and you didn't take the sex addiction lecture. You didn't take the porn addiction lecture. You took the one that would be the fastest route to figuring out how to get peace in your home with your spouse. So I just want to say that, if you have a partner who's taken a course, we appreciate it. The work is good. I think it's good education, but if they're an active or a new addict and they're taking the course about trying to get you to forgive them or look like they have empathy, I think they're just taking it to find a way to manipulate. So
and one other thing about that.
There.
Well, but that happens a lot. So, but the facilitator talks to them specifically. So that means someone's tuning out the message of like, you may really want to consider the sex addiction 101, part 1. They're just ignoring that and going, well, I checked off the box for doing Out of the Doghouse. So now she should forgive me and we should have a great relationship. So.
Well, and Doghouse does speak to, if you're not doing the work, if you're not going to meetings, if you don't have a support system, if you're not, then it doesn't matter what you say or do. Nothing will ever be healed.
Okay,
what do we got?
The next one, and you're going to have to help me translate this. I, female, just found out that my partner, male, has not only had ONSs, I don't know what that is, frequently over the past year with women, but with cross-dressing men, trans women. Meanwhile, he and I have had sex 4 times in that year. We are working on things now. And he has been sober since December 24th, but he still can't be intimate sexual with me. Before, he used to work in stress and frustration with the state of the house, me not doing enough, as an excuse. But now he says it's due to shame. Is that just another excuse?
Well, there's 2 pieces to this. There's what he's aroused by and what he looks at. And then there's her sexual life. So Tammy, could you mind breaking those down? Because I think there's 2 questions. I know it's hard to figure out. Maybe someone in the chat could
bottom line, he's been acting out and found out. So yes, but it was cheating, and regardless of whether it was cross-dressing men, trans women, or
whatever.
With female, yeah,
and
there was
cheating. I want to change a word. I'm sorry, Tammy. Please. I want to change a word in here, which is he still can't be. No, he doesn't choose to be intimate or sexual with you. Can't is, I'm out of town, working on it with you, that's a choice. So I understand, and I think it's very true that sex addicts are fearful of intimacy. We avoid it. We are intimacy avoidant. As much sex as we have with strangers, it's very hard to have sex with our partners. We run away. That's part of why we act out over here. So I don't know that I want to have sex with my partner. We have an expression that sex for a recovering sex addict doesn't come out of horniness, like, oh, I can't wait to have a piece of that. It comes out of willingness, because we are afraid and we do avoid. So can we lie with each other and stroke each other's hair? Can we get massage oil? Oops, I'm aroused. I never expected that. Oh, we had great sex. Who knew? But we get intimidated and scared and tend to back away when it's the time to have sex. But there are ways to grow that and evolve that. I don't think part of it is sex is not just going to penetration. There are all kinds of ways to be intimate. And so if he's not able to or interested in sex, how about all kinds of physical contact, bathing and massages and combing hair and all kinds of things you can do together that isn't the kind of sex that is purely penetrative.
This is less than 60 days, though. This is less than 60 days since he stopped. And so same thing, I'm going to say the same thing I did for the previous one. I don't hear any work that he's doing, to change. Just stopping is abstinence, but that is not changing. That is not working on the shame. That is not, and I'm sorry, I have to go to the house isn't clean enough. And so I don't want to have sex with you. Give me a freaking break. What a blame shifting, guilting, thing. It's you, because you didn't clean the house. He could clean the house. Pardon me.
Well, that just made me mad. Excuses. But I really appreciate your saying that, Tammy, because I will say to both of you, why is sex so important? You will miss it and long for it perhaps, but you'll survive, and why is it, how do I say this? One of the spouses I talked to recently said, was going through a similar nightmare. This happened, that happened. And they said, and I said, well, how are you being sexual? Oh yeah, we're having sex every night. Is that a good idea? And my answer is, what is your motivation? Because a lot of spouses, especially when they find out or in the early stages like this, you are warmer, you feel more sexual. And there's a lot of reasons for that. They're not always good ones. For example, when you examine it, am I being sexual to make sure to reassure myself that I'm still desirable? Am I being sexual so that if I give them enough sex, they won't want to go somewhere else for it? Am I having sex because I want to prove that I'm still attractive? I mean, who knows? Those are not good reasons. And what I say to every one of you all the time is, why would you have sex with someone you don't trust? And when it comes down to that, my question would be, do you trust this person to put your needs first and to be safe with, and then decide if you want to be sexual? So I don't know why it's so important right now to have it, unless he's saying something about it, which, yeah, it seems like there's way too much emphasis on sex and not enough about healing and recovery, I would say.
And he still can't be intimate sexual with me. And I'm like, intimate is completely different. And I believe he can't be intimate. And he's choosing not to, the sexual, but they're completely different. Being intimate is being vulnerable. Being intimate is being close.
Communication,
nothing
engaged.
about sex. So sex addicts prove all the time that
sex is a form of intimacy.
Can be, yes.
Right.
But sex addicts have sex all the time and it's not intimate.
So that's what I hear.
Yeah.
What do you got?
Okay, the next one. Betrayed partner, multiple discoveries over 8 years. Married 45 years, coexisting addictions that he cycles and multiple at the same time. Meth, long-term emotional affair, alcohol, porn, weed, tobacco. I am pre-planning leaving as he is not sober and not doing any work. Left therapist last week and actually sneaked in and hid his affair partner in his room overnight this week. Jesus. We have been in separate rooms a year. I have no more capacity for tolerance. I can't move right now and he won't. What can I do for safety?
Well, I'm going to ask Tammy to address this, but I want to say, first of all, this is a worst case scenario. When you get into the drugs and the alcohol and the partner in the other room, I mean, how horrifying could this be for you? So what I want to say, and I'm going to leave the rest to Tammy, is this is the person we treat. This is absolutely, without question, someone who needs to come to residential treatment. You can't have a problem with drugs and sex and the incredible cluelessness about the pain they're going to cause if they just sneak. I mean, there's so much denial, there's so much illness here, that this is not somebody who is going to get well without serious help. And my answer to your pre-planning leaving is, yeah, get a lawyer. Yeah, if you're married, yeah, make sure that you are protecting yourself, but my response would be, based on what you've been doing, you go to treatment, and then I'll decide whether I want to be with you or not. It would be, for me, it would be a boundary, which is, unless you go get serious. I mean, this is someone, if this was drugs and alcohol, this is someone who's getting DUIs, has driven with your kids drunk in the car, has hit trees. I mean, this is a very serious illness, and he's still playing it out. So, and by the way, you're married 45 years. That means he's probably in at least 65. 65-year-olds, look, 25-year-olds who do meth, it's a bit of a struggle. They may get tired and have a bad day. 65-year-olds who do meth have heart attacks and strokes. Our bodies are not, I can tell you as an older person, my body is not made up for. I did lots of drugs back in the day, but I was 19. I could go in a cocaine binge and wake up the next day and go to work if I even woke up, or if I even went to sleep. But this is not a game that someone wants to play at this age. So my fear would not only be what's going on, but this person's killing themselves. And do I want to sit here with someone I care about, because you do, and watch them kill themselves? This is someone who should come visit me and Dr. Fawcett. And trust me, this is exactly an example of a perfect client for us. And I don't say that for any reason other than, Tammy, if you what is a perfect partner client? Well, a man this age has been doing this long and is doing drugs and is still acting. I mean, this is what we see every day in residential treatment. This is not someone they're so far gone. This is not a therapy case. This is not a weekend intensive case. This is not go to our lecture series case. This is go to somewhere where we're watching you 24/7 and you are unable to do anything except look at yourself. Tammy, did you want to add?
Well, I'm just I'm trying to, like, what can you practically do? I mean, you already have separate rooms, you know, and he still snuck it, like, and I'm thinking, what does the affair partner have? I mean, like, oh my God, you know, what a sad thing across everything, you know, that somebody was willing to be snuck in. Locking your room for sure, but you know, I mean, like you, Dr. Rob has said, you know, change the locks on the doors, you know, when he's I don't know what to do.
I
I mean,
can't
honestly,
move
that is
right
a
now,
horrible, I know,
and he won't.
But like, you know, he can go
So
stay with the affair
yeah,
partner.
I don't know what he won't means, because, you know, you can find ways to get someone out of your house. But I'm also, you know, there are also ways to completely separate your lives inside of your own home. And I hope that you're seeing a therapist, because this is some of the most painful stuff I think I hear is something like this. Definitely story of the day. And my heart just sinks for you, especially after all those years of marriage.
Yeah, I did.
And late
Yeah,
60s is not when people want to talk about separating and moving on with their lives. You know, this is when you should be
no,
looking for retirement and companionship. And
yeah.
this is a bad scenario. And it
Yeah,
worries
and
me.
I feel for you, like, in such a
Mhm.
genuine way. So, okay, next question. How do I work past feeling like I'm suppressing my sexuality as a sex addict? I've been in recovery for a few years and I cannot maintain sobriety. I believe there is some healthy sexuality I have, but I believe I have to become anorexic sexually to become healthy and sober. Please give feedback. That is such a common mispercepeption.
Tammy, do you want to touch that real quick before I start? Or do you want me
Sure,
to, I'll just
because,
dive
well,
in.
no, well, I mean, the only thing is, like, you know, we've talked before, like, people talk about, "Oh, I've 10 years sober in essay," and they haven't dated, they haven't had any sex.
Right,
So,
right, right.
you know, yeah, unlike chemical, where it really is abstinence, eating disorders, sex. I mean, it's not about, like,
Right.
and I, you know, what I really think is, when you're talking about suppressing my sexuality, in recovery, in true recovery, and Dr. Rob can talk about, you know, dating and all of that, but it's, you know, you will have a more intimate and connected sex life than you would as a sex addict. So it isn't, they're not in conflict. It's just learning how to navigate it with proper help. You know, rather than going and acting out, yeah, how can you do it with integrity? So, Dr. Rob.
Well, and just the last thing, I agree with Tammy. It's for some of us sex addicts, it becomes a binge purge cycle, just
Mhm.
like food. You know, I'm binging, and so I'm gonna starve myself. You know, and as Tammy said, neither end of that is healthy, and neither of that end of that's health. So I understand being. I'm trying to get the light so it doesn't so weird. I understand the idea of being anorexic, which makes perfect sense given what I said before, which is we are intimacy avoidant. So now you're being asked to healthy sex would be with someone you're getting to know or someone you care about, and that's scary for us. And for some of us, we want to stop acting out, but the thought of being truly sexually intimate with somebody in a way that we really know them is scary. So to me, and I said this to Tammy, this is what you were going to say, but I've been to meetings where, so yeah, someone raised their hand, they say, I have 10 years sober. And I'm like, oh, what's that like? Well, I haven't had sex in 10 years. That's not the kind of recovery I would want. And so, you know, I think you need to get to work on this, whatever place you're stuck. You know, what would it be like to date? Can you write a page about what the person you want to date would be like? Can you talk about what a sex life you want to have would be like? I mean, you can, I guess what I'm saying is this is an interesting question, but what are you going to do about it? You know, I think nothing's going to change unless you get to work. And I don't know what that is. Just as much you have to work on avoiding the problem, you also need to dive into life in a healthy way. And what are you doing to grow your healthy sexuality, move toward that? It doesn't just happen because you stopped acting out. It's something you have to work on.
So you sound like a perfect candidate for the Sex Addiction 101 Part 1 work group that starts on March 4th. I think you would
Why,
have
Tammy?
because you would have some tools to use. You would understand what inner circle, middle circle, outer circle are. You'd have some support. You'd have some understandings and connections. But same thing. And I know these are just snippets, but I don't hear my sponsor says, you know, so I don't hear that you're working with a sponsor. I don't hear that you're working with a qualified therapist. I don't hear any of those aspects of it. And just stopping is the pressure cooker. And to me, that's the cycle of addiction. Oh, I can be really good. I can be really good. Boom. I can be really good. I can be really good. So like, so you're not in recovery. You have periods of abstinence, but you can, you can learn to do life differently, and you can have meaningful, joyful relationships. Complicated because life is messy and
Well, or maybe you
relationships
have
are
a lot of
messy.
trauma to work through or something
Yeah.
before you get there. I don't know. But this is the most important thing I can say to the addicts tonight, which is recovery is, how do I say this? Recovery is not about not doing things. Recovery is about doing things. So yes, it's important to stop doing this and stop doing that and don't do this and don't do that. But where the rubber hits the road is, okay, how am I going to enjoy my life? How am I going to have healthy pleasure? How am I going to start having fun? Because my idea of fun before was watching porn. So how are you going to, this is really, what are you doing to begin to replace your addiction with joy and fun and creativity and meditation and all the things that we know will help create a life? Are you playing ball? Are you, anyway, I want to get through as many, we have 15 questions, so let's keep moving.
ONS is one night stand. So now we know.
Oh,
I was, okay.
thank
So
you.
hi, PA, 4 months into recovery. I'm in and out of the doghouse work group, meeting with a CSAT twice a week. I'm actively working on the steps with my sponsor and attending multiple meetings a day. Yay. We have gone through disclosure and passed a polygraph. We are living separately and set a boundary where we only communicate via text and only about our children or financial matters. How can I show her how my recovery is going and the changes I'm making with such limited interaction?
Well, I would ask her that question. I don't know the answer, but I would say to her, I'm making a lot of progress and I've been doing well. Some of our interactions, polygraph, whatever, been well. What are our next steps? I'd like to understand that. You don't have to say even what that is. Like, I want to date, or I want to just, I need to know how we're going to go forward. And I agree with you. Well, one thing though is the last sentence, how can I show her how my recovery is going? That is not your job. Your job is to live your recovery, and she will see the differences in you. I mean, if your job is to say, like, if you're thinking, well, if I just have a few minutes with the teacher, I'll show her what great grades I'm getting in the other class. It's not about what you're doing elsewhere or your recovery. It's for the two of you. You don't have anything to prove to her. You have to prove things to yourself. And she will say what's going on here, what's going there, if she wants to know. I am, how long has this been? Yeah, I mean, I don't have answers for you. This is really up to her. And does she even want to be in the relationship now? I don't know. But the best way to figure out is to communicate. And if she says, I don't want to talk about it, you can still say, I hear that, but I just need to have some clue. Are we going to see each other more often? Are we going to be in therapy? Are we, you do have a right to an answer here. This is a place where you get, even, well, you acted out and I don't have to tell you. No, this is our life going forward. And I need to have some clue where we are going, but not, let me prove to you all the amazing things I've done so that XYZ. It's not your job to try to prove something to her so she moves towards you. First, you have to see she wants to move towards you. So
yeah, well, and I think if you guys both have CSATs, can we have a conjoint session with our two CSATs to discuss what is the plan? Because if there's just separation and there's no plan for these are the things that we're looking towards to move forward or to move back together, then it just ends up being we're forever separated. So, and you have kiddos, so like getting a plan would be a great idea. So.
And you can do this with a therapist. So, what, honey, I think we've done really well so far. And I wonder if we could have a session together to see what's happening now and just, do it with a neutral party.
Okay, next question. If the CSAT knows the addict is not in the program and refuses program, is there a point in the therapy? I suggested to change my trauma therapist. I chose not to. I'm in S-Anon and it's hard work. I make mistakes and lose my mind and I mess up. I do see it after and I make apologies. How long does it take to stop messing up? That's called life. And we, like in the 12 steps, we have amends. I make amends, on a less frequent basis than I had to early on, but I still make amends. That's called life. So I guess it depends on what you're, it sounds like you're the betrayed partner. I don't know how early in the process this is, but the more things calm down, the easier it is to not, get so triggered and have things be complicated. But,
well,
you're doing the work.
Sorry.
Please.
Let me answer the first part of the question, which is, Can we recover without just 12-step programs? Yes. Can we recover without a consistent community that supports us? No. I know people who are involved with long-term church groups that are involved men with this issue. I know people who go to therapy groups. I used to run a group. I had men go for 8 years. I don't know if they could see me once a week for 8 years, but they did. They wanted to be in the group is what they wanted. So as far as it doesn't, so, and I want to go back to your boundaries. Would you feel safer? And would you feel like you want to move toward this person if they were going to program? You can say, do whatever you want. But if you want to be around me, if you want to grow something with me, if you want us to XYZ, my boundary is you have to go. And then it's up to them. They can move towards you or they can move away from you. I'm curious about the refuses to their therapist. The CSAT knows the Addict Anonymous program refuses program. I don't have one for that, Tammy.
Well, we know people that, lie to their CSAT. I mean, at some point it's like, why bother continuing to go to your therapist if all you are doing is checking off a box and you're not really making any progress, but I hear this is a betrayed partner who feels like they're making progress, sees, areas where they're messing up, so to speak, and is working on it. So at the end of the day, we can only work on us. I can only control my actions and reactions. I can't control another person. But like you said, Dr. Rob, I can put up healthy boundaries around, I need this for my safety. If that person, because they're not doing anything different other than, if you want, he does not do individual therapy. I'm just saying that. But if when he used to do that, just seeing a person, a qualified professional for 50 minutes once a week isn't going to handle these things that are years and decades old. So, at some point, nothing changes if nothing changes. But you are the betrayed partner are doing the work. You will find peace and joy again. You can be resilient regardless of what the addict is doing.
Yeah, and I want to just bounce out something Tammy said earlier, and I don't know your situation, but all of our answers are general. If it doesn't apply to you, hope it applies to someone else. But I don't know if you're aware of this, but addicts lie. And if we want to live our life a certain way, and you are thinking, well, I trust their therapist, but you're not talking to the therapist on a regular basis, and many of you don't want to intrude on their therapy, understandable, whatever.
Or get told that you can't talk to my therapist.
Right. Well, I'm not going to let you use my private. So how do you know that that's true to any of you? Just because someone says my therapist said, people have said I said a lot of things because they wanted to convince their spouse that they wanted to do what they wanted to do and they wanted to have my rubber stamp, and so they lied about it. And one of the things that you can do is you can call this person's therapist and leave a message and say, I'm the spouse. I just want you to know I feel really uncomfortable with this. I don't really understand the process. I know you may not be able to call me back, but I do want you to know that I've been told that program doesn't matter. And that really scares me. You can leave a message. They may never respond, but at least they have that information. You may not know, that therapist may not know what you're being told. So addicts lie. I don't know why, but.
Well, and messages get distorted. I'm going to take a quick second. I was talking to one of the founders of We Tonglen. I value that organization, but I was talking to her a week or two ago, and she said 3 things. And I said, I'm sorry, but that's not true. So there was this misinformation in the betrayed partner community about a variety of things. And I was like, if you want to know, go to the source. So, like always learn more.
Tammy, I know that people are going to say to you, they're going to say, what is We Tonglen? Since you said something,
okay,
so you're going to have to explain.
I will put it in. It's for betrayed partners. I will put a link in, but it is a community for female betrayed partners, and it's just peer support. But they have a number of resources. Dr. Rob and he's going to do another one in April, but he has done a presentation on prodependence for the We Tonglen group, but
lecture.
They have self-love Saturday. Like they really do. They have resources and they are really a very supportive organization of betrayed partners for betrayed partners. So, but I will put something in the chat. We Tonglen.
And women only.
Women only.
There are no men allowed.
Correct.
I mean, I can give a lecture, but I can't join a group. I can't talk to people. There's nothing. You have to come to us for that. And there's plenty of stuff for addicts to attend.
Yes.
Or male spouses.
Okay. what are the challenges and workarounds for a marriage where the wife has been caught having a sexual affair after or some time ago, and the husband admitted to using porn about 6 months ago? Husband is working on recovery from PA. Wife is insistent on me going through this. So this is the male, through formal therapeutic disclosure and dog housing me when I didn't force her to make amends for her affair or addressing her addiction issues then. I feel like the designated punching bag in this relationship.
Well, that's a lot. So I don't know the details of this. I can only tell you a story that I run into frequently, which is we've been married. I'm going to make this up. We've been married for 12 years. And I found out recently that during the worst of our problems, my wife went out once or twice with somebody and had sex. And I will hold that resentment forever. And when you ask me to look at my 12 years of acting out, I'm going to say to you, well, what about your affair? And I think, whatever the affair was, it is completely irresponsible of us not taking responsibility for our own stuff to say, well, I did this for 12 years, but you did this one time. And I'm not saying that that person is responsible, isn't accountable, needs to be talked about, but I often hear addicts finding ways to blame their behaviors on someone else or put, well, look at you did this, so what are you going to blame me for this for? But they're not always exactly balanced. So, and besides, it's not your job you are in early recovery. Your job is sobriety. This is the spouse, by the way.
This is the
Husband is working on
husband who
recovery.
is the porn addict, who is
Right.
Whose wife betrayed him a number of years ago with an affair.
Right. I don't think that this is the time to say, well, you did it too. I unless it was, if there's been a 9-year affair, that's a whole different set of circumstances. So anyway, I don't have more answers for this, Tammy. I think that this couple needs to be in therapy because there's so many pieces that are woven together, and you really need somebody to sit there and pull these pieces apart, because this question is too complex, too personal to your issues for me to respond, other than saying you may be comparing apples and oranges.
I'm going to tag on because you know what? We are accountable for ourselves, and doing the work with resentment, you will it's going to be a disaster. Right. That's what our 4th step is about, is working through our resentment. So a formal therapeutic disclosure is for us, it helps us, it's to set the foundation, but I'm serious, please work with your sponsor, do steps 4 through 9, and do it from the, I want to heal from this. I am a porn addict. I am going to work on making my life about integrity. I've got no control over anybody else's. Betrayed partners have this all the time. Why won't he or she, whatever, it doesn't matter. All I have is control over me. And so you have plenty to do on working with yourself without comparing or, pointing a finger at somebody else and going, well, you should have to do that too. Hopefully your wife steps up and takes care of her side of the street, but it's not your job. Okay, next question. I am the female betrayed partner of a male sex addict. First discovery was October, and he has been a drip torture of discovery since. He refuses any treatment, recovery, or 12-step programs. I understand denial and shame, but his lying appears to be compulsive and without shame, more along the lines of narcissistic borderline. I have illness from which I am disabled, and my doctors say my stress response to his gaslighting significantly endangers my health. How do I safely disengage without him triggering and spiraling to a Darbo?
I should know Darvo, but I don't.
I know, I can never remember it. I have to get a Post-it note and stick it on.
That's right. I'll type it in. Why don't you? I'll look it up. Why don't you start?
No, but well, he refuses. So this goes back to we get this all the time. He refuses.
It's an
acronym, but I can't remember what it all
says. It's an anger that is expressed by the person who is the perpetrator of the wrongdoing. Right. So if I'm the addict, Darvo is a synonym for deny, attack, reverse, the victim, and offender, which means it's often used in offender literature, but it's gaslighting. It's, you come after me and I'm going to come after you and I'm going to push you because I know that I can get you to back down, and I'll do anything it takes to push the problem on you, to not be responsible, and to keep doing what I'm doing. But the question I have is, how do I safely disengage? What does that really mean? I'm asking you, Tammy. I hear disabled. Stress is a problem. Um, what do you mean by disengage? What do you think, Tammy? I want to hear.
To me, this is what, you know, you know, more along the lines of narcissistic borderline. You know, unless you've gotten a diagnosis by a qualified professional, it's easy to go, well, they have, you know, they're narcissists. All addicts are narcissists. You know, I don't know about the borderline, but what I hear is somebody who's got physical illness and needs to have extra sturdy boundaries, you know, for your physical, emotional, financial, and spiritual. But physical safety, you know, he is endangering your life in effect by all of this. So what, you know, when I hear he refuses anything, what I hear is somebody who does not perceive that there's enough reason to change. They're comfortable enough dealing with what they're dealing with despite negative consequences. So for you, how can you take care of you in this situation so that you have, you know, have the ability, you know, if you need to bring in, you know, outside help for your physical help, you know, I don't know, I'm making this up, but, you know, what do you need to do to take care of you so that the focus isn't on him? You know, he's in active addiction. So what do you need to do to take care of you so that you're valuing you and your physical health is not compromised or put in worse peril? How about that? So. Okay. Well, let's do another. Okay. So this one is, I'm a 60-year-old man, discovered 6 years ago. I'm SA and alcoholic, started porn and masturbation addiction 12 years, at 12 years old. I now know I cheated on my wife with porn, emotional affairs, hookups with males, and serious stuff for 39 years. I divorced her 6 months ago. I've been in SAA and therapy for 6 years, relapsed many times since sobriety has been hard. I've come out gay and very lonely. When will I be able to go on dating sites again to meet people? That's a complicated question.
Well, what always comes up for me is in these circumstances is, what are you doing to build community? You know, there are a lot of gay and lesbian centers and programs online where they speak to men who are coming out late. And, you know, you came out in your 50s, your 60s. I really recommend, just from that piece, that you sit with some of those men and you listen to their stories and you see what's similar and what isn't. My other question is, what are you doing to join gay or lesbian activities? Like, you know, there are gay hiking groups, there are gay theater groups, there are gay choruses, there are gay churches. You know, how are you putting yourself, I mean, online, you know, it is the world we live in today for sure. But as a gay man, I'm very interested in people focusing more on having fun and maybe meeting some, you know, if you like to hike, maybe you'll meet someone you like who likes to hike. If nothing else, you made a whole bunch of friends, and maybe one of them will introduce you to someone. So I think it's fine to go online and go on sites to meet people if that's what you want, but I think there are things that need to be done first. You need some kind of community. You need to be comfortable in the world of gay men. You need to see if you can find other people who are doing fun things that you like, so that you can begin to meet people and be in that world. So do you have a social life, a fun life, a creative life in that community? I would want to be asking myself those questions before I would look to date. Yeah.
So do you have time for one more? Or do
Yeah,
you
let's
need to
do
go?
it. Let's do it. Let's do it. And then you and I need to talk for a few minutes.
Okay. All right. The next one I got to move to. Okay. So this is, if you have a past that includes rape from a past partner and there's tons of coercion and abusive behavior, and he now works teaching blind people, is this common where people who are terrible try to look good on the outside, similar to priests that molested kids? I feel like I have less faith in people in helping positions due to my experience. How do I get past this?
Well, I think if you really want to get, in part, I think there might be some education you can do. You know, you're asking, is it this or is it that? I think there is reading material and information on people who put forward a false front. It's sort of like the big evangelical priest who's constantly, or pastor constantly speaking against masturbation or whatever, and he's looking at porn 4 hours a night. I mean, there are some people who put this front up, and they even think, well, I'm helping people with that problem, and it makes me feel better about what I've been through, what I've done, because I'm giving, and maybe that sort of makes me equal in, I kind of balances out. So I wanted to answer the actual question. So hold on a second. Tammy, do you want to jump in while I'm re-looking for this?
Yes. So one of the things that I get how you could feel that way. And it's easy to paint the broad brush of everybody's doing this. There are people who are offenders who will find and navigate into spaces, where they have access to vulnerable people who, unfortunately, but there are so many. We work in the therapist community. I know so many people who are, giving and caring and, working on themselves and everything else. So I fortunately know lots of people who aren't, showing a different face to the outside world than the one that they really have, that secret life. But I think it's going to be you finding, a person to trust and going, wow, that person, now what about this one, and growing that circle. It'll be harder to trust that that the world is not all unkind, but I just know too many people that, that are really good people, human. So still flawed and everything else, but really working on doing good within the world. So.
And I just want to add one thing, is that you said from a past partner that there was rape and coercion and abusive behavior. Why do you even know what he's doing? Why do you even know that he's teaching? Why do you have it's not your job to protect those people. It's not your job to make sure he's not doing this anymore. I wonder why you are spending any more emotional time on someone who's already harmed you. And what is your, I don't think about the bank robber. I just want him in jail. I don't think about, oh, well, now he's gotten out, now he's a job, and I want to move on with my life. And so I guess my question to you is, could you move on with your life? And yes, it will be difficult to trust other people, but it'll be more difficult if you keep looking back at your abuser and then drawing conclusions on that. I don't think you have to look at anything about him ever again. At least that's and I do wonder why you feel the need to protect other people. To me, that's like, really kind of like, I want to protect myself still. But get this person out of your life. Don't look for them, don't find them, don't learn about them, block them on social media. This person's already abused you. You don't need to go back for more information or to find out they're still abusing other people. It's just going to hurt you. These aren't your children. These aren't your so
you can't save the world, but you could get some trauma help for you. So if you need a therapist, Tammy, TAMI at seekingintegrity.com, include where you're located, and I'll do my best to help you find someone to help you.
So I just want to say, this isn't the only place that you get support. I know you have lots of questions. We have so many groups that are for you. Every time I talk to someone about my podcast, they are constantly saying how incredibly important this was. And a lot of spouses are like, oh, you get this. I want to have a consultation with you, or I want to tell my husband to listen to everyone, or wife, or whatever. So we give lots of answers and we give them away for free. This is one of the few forums where you can grab me and Tammy. But, we make sure to have the right people, the most informed people working with you, whether it's a consult with Jason or Tammy, or whether it's a consult with me, or we have so many videos, we have so many podcasts. There's so much you can learn. And I really encourage you, those of you who are here and really have questions, don't be disappointed. You will find a place to get that. You can go enter this world we have created and you'll find answers there, or you'll find people to talk to who can give you some. Tammy, it's great to see you.
Good to see you. FaceTime me. Bye.
Okay. Yeah, I will. Bye, you guys.